The night map of the world. When the lights of our cities fade into the distance, when the noise of the day settles into silence, the world reveals another kind of map, not drawn on paper, but on memory. It stretches across deserts and mountains, over forests and oceans, glowing faintly in the darkness like veins of fire beneath the skin of the earth. These are the roads that shape the world. They are not just paths for travelers or merchants. They are the arteries of civilization, the quiet lines through which humanity once breathed. Long before the sky was traced with flight paths or the seas charted with digital routes, there were trails made by feet and hooves, worn by wheels and sandals, carved by centuries of motion. Each one carried not only goods, but ideas, stories, and dreams. The first road was never planned. It began with footsteps, a hunter's path, a herder's track, a shortcut between two watering holes. Over time, those trails became familiar, packed firm by the endless rhythm of walking. A few stones placed to cross a stream, a line of torches lit to mark the way, and suddenly the wilderness began to look like home. Then came trade, and with trade came connection. People learned that beyond the horizon there were others, strangers who ate differently, spoke differently, believed differently, yet still needed salt, grain, or silk. Roads became the threads that wove their worlds together. Every road has its sound. The soft clink of camel bells on desert winds, the crunch of wagon wheels on frozen mud, the shuffle of sandals through mountain dust. Each rhythm carries the same story, that humanity, restless and curious, has always moved forward. At night, those sounds would fade into quiet. Travelers would gather around fires, sharing tales of storms and thieves, of kindness in distant inns, of the strange smell of spices from lands they'd never seen. The road was not just a passage of earth, it was a passage of memory. Some believed roads were alive, that they remembered those who walked them, that every step left not just a mark in dust, but a whisper in time. And perhaps they were right. Because even now, when you stand on a forgotten trail or beside the ruins of an ancient way station, you can feel it. A vibration beneath your feet, faint but real, like the pulse of something that once connected worlds. If you could look down upon the earth from above, not as it is now, but as it once was, you would see it glowing, a web of light crossing continents. From the yellow sands of Asia, threads would stretch westward toward the Mediterranean. The Silk Road, from the cold shores of the Baltic, a golden line of trade would run south. The Amber Road, and across Persia, straight and proud. The Royal Road would cut through mountains and plains, carrying messages that traveled faster than the wind. Each road was a promise, a way to bridge distance, a way to make the world smaller and humanity larger. But time moves like a slow, patient traveler. The sand covers the tracks. The forests reclaim the paths. The mountains crumble. The roads that once echoed with wheels and voices now lie empty. The caravan bells are silent. The messengers are gone. The amber traders, the Persian couriers, the silk merchants, all have faded into dust. And yet, the lines remain, not in the earth, but in us. Because roads do not disappear, they become memory, shaping the way we think, the way we imagine distance, the way we tell stories of journey and return. Tonight, we will follow 3 of them. The Silk Road, that great eastern artery that carried silk and spices, but also philosophy and faith from China to Rome. The Amber Road, glowing with the light of the north, where traders followed the scent of the sea and the gleam of golden resin. And the Royal Road, Persia's masterpiece, a highway of stone and empire, where the king's messengers rode faster than any wind. Each road has its rhythm, its face, its silence. Together, they tell a single story, that to move is to live, and to connect is to create. So close your eyes. Imagine the earth not as a globe of land and sea, but as a living body of motion, veins, pulses, breaths. Feel the weight of footsteps stretching across centuries, the smell of dust and salt, the shimmer of starlight over distant dunes. The world is asleep, but the roads are still awake. They wait for us, to listen, to remember, to walk them once more. Why roads matter. A road is more than a line drawn across the land. It is an agreement, a promise between people that movement is possible, that somewhere beyond the next horizon, someone is waiting. In the beginning, every journey was an act of faith. Before maps, before compasses, before borders, there was only direction. The pull of the sun, the whisper of the wind, the instinct to move forward. And yet, wherever people went, roads followed. They were humanity's first architecture of connection, invisible bridges between the known and the unknown. If you trace the birth of every great civilization, you will find a road at its heart. Egypt had the river roads of the Nile, linking temples and tombs to the flow of life. Persia built its royal road, 2,000 miles of stone that stitched an empire together. Rome laid down its network of straight, eternal lines, carving order into chaos. And beyond them, invisible but vast, ran the Silk Road, a ribbon of sand and stars connecting east to west. Each one turned distance into destiny. A civilization without roads is a thought without memory, a voice without echo. Roads allowed ideas to travel faster than armies, faith to move farther than kings, and knowledge to spread like fire across continents. It was along the roads that religions were born and transformed. Buddhism journeyed from India to China along the Silk Road. Its statues carved in mountain caves where caravans rested. Christianity followed Roman roads into Europe, its message carried by travelers and merchants as much as by priests. Even languages changed. Persian mingled with Greek, Latin with Celtic, Chinese with the tongues of the steppe. And with each word shared, the world became a little more connected, a little more aware of itself. The road was not just a path of trade, it was a path of transformation. To rule was to build roads. Empires understood that power was not measured in armies alone, but in how fast a message could travel from one capital to another. The royal road of Persia stretched from Susa to Sardis, its courier system so efficient that a royal command could cross the empire in mere days. Centuries later, Rome perfected the idea, viae, the roads, that carried soldiers, laws, and dreams to the edges of the known world. Every empire believed its roads would last forever. Stone by stone, they paved their confidence into the earth. And though the empires are gone, their lines remain, some still visible, others buried beneath modern highways. We drive upon them every day without knowing whose footsteps once marked the same ground. But not all who walked the roads were kings or soldiers. Most were ordinary people. A farmer leading donkeys laden with figs. A mother carrying cloth to trade for salt. A poet wandering from town to town, reciting for a bowl of rice and a place to sleep. These lives, small and unrecorded, were the true heartbeat of the roads. Every footprint was a story. Every worn stone was a memory of someone who passed, someone who looked at the same horizon, wondering what lay beyond it. The road gave humanity a shared language of hope, the knowledge that forward is always possible. There is a strange thing about roads. They always lead outward, but they also lead inward. To walk a road is to move through history, but also through oneself. Each traveler, in the silence between steps, carries questions. Where am I going? What am I seeking? What will I find when the journey ends? Perhaps that is why the oldest myths are about journeys. Odysseus on the wine-dark sea, the Buddha walking beneath the Bodhi tree, pilgrims tracing paths to holy places. The road is the mirror of our desire to move, to change, to return home transformed. If you listen carefully, you can hear the echo of the past beneath modern roads. The hum of a highway is not so different from the drone of carts on ancient stone. The glow of headlights is another form of torchlight. The endless motion, wheels, hooves, footsteps, has never truly stopped. It has simply changed its rhythm. We think of roads as ancient history, but we are still walking them. The Silk Road runs today through fiber-optic cables. The Royal Road survives in postal routes and data lines. The Amber Road gleams again in the trade of the North. Every connection we make, every message sent, every idea shared, is another step on the eternal road of humanity. Sometimes, in remote deserts or mountain passes, the outline of an ancient road still appears. Faint grooves where wheels once rolled, stones half buried in dust. They seem lifeless, but they are not. The earth remembers movement. It holds the trace of passage the way water holds the memory of a stone thrown into it. The road is the earth's handwriting, the record of where we have been and how we chose to move forward. That is why roads matter. They are not only the infrastructure of the past, but the imagination of the present. They remind us that every step taken, every exchange, every connection is part of a larger journey that began thousands of years ago and has not yet ended. And so tonight, we follow that journey. We walk the great roads of history, the Silk Road, the Amber Road, the Royal Road, not as archaeologists, but as dreamers. We listen to the footsteps of merchants, the songs of travelers, the silence of deserts. We walk slowly, without haste, guided only by curiosity and time. Because in the end, to follow the road is to understand what it means to be human, to move, to seek, to connect. The night has deepened. The stars, quiet and patient, hang above the earth like old waypoints. If you close your eyes, you can almost see them forming lines, not constellations, but routes, invisible highways connecting every horizon. And somewhere within that stillness, you hear the faintest rhythm, the creak of wooden wheels, the sigh of sand beneath hooves, the whisper of distant voices speaking languages long gone. The world is waiting, and it is time to begin. Tonight, we will walk 3 of the great arteries of history, the roads that carried not only gold and silk, but the very heartbeat of civilization itself. The Silk Road, the breath of the East. Our first path stretches across the deserts and mountains of Asia. It begins in the old Chinese capital of Chang'an, where the city gates once opened to a horizon of dust and promise. Here, merchants packed silk so light it moved like water in the air. They tied bolts of fabric with cords of red hemp, loaded them onto camels, and set out toward the setting sun. Beyond the walls lay 1,000 dangers, sandstorms, bandits, hunger, thirst. And yet they went, step by step, through the Taklamakan, across the Pamirs, into Persia, and onward to Antioch and the shores of the Mediterranean. The Silk Road was not one road, but 1,000, a shifting network of routes across steppes and deserts. It carried silk, spices, jade, glass, and silver, but also songs, stories, ideas, and faiths. Along it, Buddhism traveled to the east, Christianity to the east, Islam to the west. In the marketplaces of Samarkand and Kashgar, languages mingled like fragrances. Greek, Sanskrit, Persian, and Chinese words blended into a music that still echoes in the world's trade routes today. But beyond trade, the Silk Road was something deeper, a meeting of souls. Every caravan was a moving city. Every desert inn, a tiny universe of strangers who for one night became companions in the endless motion of history. If you listen closely, you can still hear them. The clinking of camel bells, the laughter of traders sharing bread under foreign stars, the hush of the desert as dawn breaks. painting gold over endless dunes. That is where our journey begins, on the wind, in the silence, on the oldest breath of the East. The Amber Road, the golden veins of the North. From the heat of Asia, we turn north, into the forests and fog of Europe, where the earth smells of pine and salt. Here lies another path, less famous, but no less ancient. The Amber Road. It ran from the shores of the Baltic Sea to the blue waters of the Adriatic, carrying one of the strangest and most beautiful treasures of the ancient world. Amber. Amber was sunlight made solid, the blood of trees turned to gold. To the ancients, it was magic, a jewel that trapped the breath of time. Inside some pieces, they found insects, flowers and leaves, perfectly preserved from a world millions of years old. It was believed to hold healing power, to protect travelers, to draw lightning, to hold souls. The Amber Road was a colder road, not of deserts, but of forests and snow. Caravans creaked through frozen paths, sleds pulled by oxen or horses. Fires burned low in the night, and traders told stories of sea spirits and gods who wept golden tears into the waves. It was along this road that the North met the South, where barbarian tribes exchanged amber for wine, salt, bronze, and silver. The road linked the cold waters of the Baltic with the warmth of Rome and Greece. And though its stones are gone now, its path still glows faintly in the memory of Europe, a golden thread beneath centuries of frost. We will walk it too, through the silence of winter and the scent of pine, following the shimmer of light caught in ancient resin. The Royal Road, Persia's gift to the world. Our final road was born not from trade, but from power. It was built by command, the will of kings turned into stone. In the heart of ancient Persia, Darius the Great ordered a road to be made. From Susa to Sardis, across rivers, plains, and mountains. It stretched more than 2,000 miles, a masterpiece of precision and control. Along it, couriers rode day and night, changing horses at way stations every few hours. Herodotus wrote of them, "Neither snow, nor rain, nor heat, nor darkness of night prevents these couriers from completing their appointed course with all speed." The royal road bound the Persian Empire together like a spine, from the shores of the Aegean to the gardens of Persepolis. It carried not goods, but messages, the voice of the king, the laws of the empire, the heartbeat of civilization itself. And yet, even this mighty road was human. Along its way were travelers, pilgrims, soldiers, and lovers. Caravans rested at royal inns, poets walked from city to city, and beneath the night sky the same stars that guided the Silk Road shone upon the Persian couriers. The royal road was not merely stone, it was faith in motion, the idea that order could cross chaos, that words could bind worlds. These are the three roads, three threads of the human story, stretching across continents and centuries. Each began with a single step. Each shaped the world we live in now. We will walk them not as traders or kings, but as wanderers of time, listening to the rhythm of footsteps, to the sigh of history carried on the wind. So take a deep breath. The torches are lit. The stars above us form a path. Ahead lies the hum of the Silk Road, the glow of the Amber Road, the echo of the Royal Road. 3 ways through one world, 3 mirrors of our journey through time. The night is quiet, and the roads are waiting. Let us begin. The Silk Road, the breath of the East. The Silk Road was never truly built. It was discovered, step by step, by countless feet following instinct more than intention. Long before the name existed, before merchants carried silk and spices, before empires gave it borders, the road was only a trail of curiosity through an endless wilderness. It began in the East, in a land of rivers and mountains, in ancient China, when the world was young and the horizon was not a limit, but an invitation. Imagine the dawn of that world. The city of Chang'an, today's Xi'an, wakes to the sound of merchants calling across narrow streets. The scent of incense and roasted grain drifts through the air. Horses stamp in the courtyards, impatient beneath loads of bright fabric. Far to the west, the land stretches into an ocean of sand and stone. There is no map, only stories of strange people beyond the mountains, of metals and gems and creatures unknown. And somewhere among those stories, a spark of desire to see, to reach, to connect. The first travelers were not conquerors. They were explorers of possibility, farmers seeking new fields, nomads chasing pastures, traders following whispers of wealth. Their path wound through the Gansu corridor, that narrow ribbon of land between the Yellow River and the desert. At its end rose the Hexi Gate, a passage to the unknown. To pass through it was to leave the known world and to enter the rhythm of the Silk Road. The road's shape was drawn not by human hands, but by the earth itself. It curved around deserts, climbed over mountains, and followed rivers that refused to yield. Every obstacle, the Gobi, the Pamirs, the Tian Shan, became part of its character. To walk the Silk Road was to negotiate with the planet, with wind, heat, and the patience of distance. Along these routes, life gathered like water in dry land. Oases, Dunhuang, Khotan, Kashgar, bloomed with gardens and inns like green beads on a golden string. Each was a world of its own, half Chinese, half foreign, entirely alive. In their markets, you could hear 10 languages before breakfast. Silk from the east, gold from the west, horses from the steppe, and glass from Rome. All changed hands in the same dusty air. Silk itself was already a mystery long before it became a commodity. To the Chinese, it was a gift from the gods. Threads drawn from the cocoons of divine worms, spun into cloth so fine it whispered in the wind. Its shimmer was like captured moonlight, soft yet strong, delicate yet enduring. No other material on earth moved like it, breathed like it, or caught light the same way. At first, it was reserved for emperors, used in rituals, diplomacy, and funerals. But soon, its beauty became impossible to contain. Traders carried bolts of it westward, and it became a kind of currency, the measure of luxury, the symbol of mystery. By the time the Romans saw it, silk was legend. They called it sericum and imagined it grown on trees, combed from the air, or gathered from mythical groves. They never truly understood where it came from, and that mystery only made it more precious. And yet, the Silk Road was never the work of one people. It was a collective dream, woven across centuries by countless cultures: Chinese, Persian, Greek, Indian, Arab, and steppe nomads who never knew their names would echo in history. Empires rose and fell along its path like waves. Han, Kushan, Parthian, Sassanid, Byzantine. Each left behind fragments, a fortress here, a coin there, a few words of a forgotten language carved in stone. But the road itself survived them all. Because the Silk Road was not a monument, it was a movement. It could not be conquered, only followed. It did not belong to any king, but to all who walked it. As centuries passed, the road became a living organism, a pulse across the continent. Ideas flowed along it as easily as silk. The music of India reached the steppes. Persian astronomy found its way to China. Buddhist art from Gandhara merged with Greek sculpture, creating faces of serene divinity that looked both east and west. At every oasis, worlds collided and reformed. A merchant from Samarkand might trade with a monk from Dunhuang. A Greek doctor might learn herbs from a Chinese healer. It was a bridge not just of commerce, but of consciousness. Through its dust and wind, the Silk Road carried the oldest lesson of humanity: that isolation is death and exchange is life. But beyond all the bustle, the road had another voice, one quieter, deeper. Those who traveled it spoke of the silence between mountains, of nights so vast the stars felt close enough to touch. In that silence, they learned patience. They learned humility before the desert, reverence before the horizon. Many never reached the end of their journey. Some vanished in storms, others in sand. Yet, even in disappearance, they became part of the road, their bones, their stories, their hopes mingling with the dust. The Silk Road is not just history. It is memory written into the land, a ghostly trail where every grain of sand once heard 1,000 voices. The desert does not forgive, and it does not forget. It is endless, a sea of dust and light, a mirror of time, where nothing moves quickly and everything lasts forever. And yet, through this silence, the caravans came. They came like rivers through a wasteland, long lines of figures stretching to the horizon, shimmering in the heat. At their head walked the guides, wrapped in cloth against the sun, eyes narrow and sure. Behind them, the camels, tall, slow, deliberate, stepping to the rhythm of an ancient drum. Each carried a world on its back, bolts of silk, sacks of spices, baskets of jade, ivory, and glass. The caravan had a rhythm all its own, slow, steady, eternal. At dawn, the world was pale and still. The first light caught the dunes like fire. Bells tinkled softly as camels rose one after another, groaning like old men waking from dreams. They moved in silence. Voices were rare. The desert punished noise. A whistle, a single call, a creak of leather. That was all. Every sound meant something. A click of the tongue told a camel to turn. A low hum meant danger ahead. The road taught language in motion. By midday, the heat pressed like an invisible weight. Men wrapped scarves over their faces, eyes hidden, footsteps small. The desert shimmered, its horizon quivering like glass. Noon was a test of endurance. Not of strength, but of patience, the art of surviving by moving slowly. At night, the desert transformed. The air cooled. The stars burned brighter than torches, and the road seemed to breathe again. Travelers gathered in small circles around fires, faces half lit, stories whispered like prayers. There were songs, too, quiet ones, carried by the wind. Songs about home, about loved ones far beyond the mountains, about faith that the road would end in safety. Some were ancient hymns, others were made up only for that night, destined to vanish with the dawn. Every few days, after endless miles of sand, the travelers would reach an oasis, a green breath of life amid emptiness. Palm trees swayed over wells, shadows gathered beneath clay walls. And there stood the caravansaries, the great inns of the Silk Road. They were miracles of human endurance, thick-walled courtyards built to hold men, animals, and dreams. Here, the air smelled of smoke and cumin, lanterns glowed from niches, camels knelt, groaning with relief, water splashed into troughs. Voices rose again, bargaining, laughing, telling news from distant lands. A merchant from India might share wine with a Persian poet. A monk from China might trade scrolls for salt. Here, the road paused, and the world came together for one brief night before scattering again at dawn. Each caravanserai was a crossroad of stories, of loss and fortune, of faith and betrayal. Some travelers found friends they would never see again. Some met their deaths by fever or blade. But all left something behind, a word, a memory, a footprint. To those who survived it, the desert was not only cruel, it was sacred. At sunset, its colors shifted like silk itself, gold melting into crimson, crimson into violet, violet into black. The dunes glowed with a light that seemed to come from within. Sometimes the wind would rise and erase everything. The footprints, the tracks, even the memory of direction. It was as if the earth itself wished to forget, to begin again. And yet, the desert was also a teacher. It stripped away everything unnecessary, noise, vanity, haste, leaving only what truly mattered: breath, water, direction, endurance. In its silence, travelers found something they did not expect: peace, a kind of truth that can only be heard when the world itself is quiet. The camels were more than beasts of burden. They were companions. They knew the desert better than any man. They could smell water miles away, sense storms before they came. Their slow gait was the rhythm of survival itself, the beat to which all travelers learned to move. To lose a camel was to lose hope. Many stories were told of animals that carried their dying masters through the final miles to safety, guided only by instinct and memory. To the people of the Silk Road, the camel was not a creature, but a guardian, patient, uncomplaining, almost holy. Every traveler feared the horizon. It promised progress, but it also hid danger. Bandits, mirages, hunger. Sometimes entire caravans vanished, swallowed by sandstorms that raged like gods. Other times, they lost their way, circling endlessly until water ran out. In the desert, death was not loud. It came softly, in silence, in sleep, in the stillness of a man who simply did not wake at dawn. And yet, the road continued, always forward, always west. Because to stop was to die, but to move, even slowly, even in fear, was to live. When the fires died and the stars returned, the road felt endless again. The dunes gleamed under the moon like frozen waves. The travelers lay on their backs, looking at constellations the same as those above Rome, India, or Persia, the same sky that watched over every road on earth. Somewhere far away, another caravan moved, their fires like faint stars on the opposite horizon. The desert watched them both, patient, eternal, silent. And in that silence, the Silk Road breathed, not with the wind, but with the heartbeat of those who dared to cross it. A road is never only a way from one place to another. It is a meeting, a crossing of destinies. Along the Silk Road, that meeting became a miracle, a slow, constant exchange between worlds that would otherwise have never touched. The caravans carried silk, yes, and spices, and gold, and porcelain. But what truly passed between the East and West was thought, invisible, weightless, untaxed, yet infinitely more valuable. From India came the sound of Sanskrit, the logic of philosophy, and the compassion of the Buddha. From China came paper and ink, the art of medicine, and the belief that harmony was a form of wisdom. From Persia came astronomy, poetry, and the idea that beauty itself could be sacred. From Greece came geometry, reason, and curiosity, the hunger to know why. All these ideas traveled the same road as camels and carts, carried by merchants and monks, pilgrims and wanderers. A scrap of paper, a story told at a fire, a carved symbol on a jar. These were the true treasures of the Silk Road. Knowledge did not move in one direction. It flowed like breath, back and forth, east to west, and west to east. It was here that civilizations learned not to fear difference, but to trade with it, to let foreign ideas reshape their own. If you could stand in one of the great cities of the Silk Road, Samarkand, Merv, Khotan, or Bukhara, you would see that exchange carved into the walls. Temples, mosques, and shrines stood side by side. Buddhas with Greek faces smiled beneath Persian arches. Silks bore patterns from India, woven with dyes from Anatolia. Pottery showed dragons from China beside lions from Babylon. Art, like trade, knew no borders. Painters borrowed colors from foreigners, poets borrowed words. The result was not confusion, but harmony. A harmony made of diversity, a mosaic more perfect than any single stone. In Samarkand's blue domes and Kashgar's golden markets, the world itself seemed to gather for a moment, not divided but whole. Religion, too, followed these paths. Buddhism traveled east along the road, carried by monks through the mountains of Central Asia. They built caves at Dunhuang and Bamiyan, filling them with painted stories of compassion and light. From the west came Christianity. Its symbols carved on coins and stones found far from Rome. And later, Islam spread along the same lines, uniting the scattered oases under a single call to prayer. For centuries, the Silk Road was not a battlefield, but a dialogue. Its travelers were translators of words, of beliefs, of the human spirit. Faith was not a wall here, but a bridge. In the hum of the market and the quiet of the monastery, different gods were spoken to in the same language of awe. Even science rode the caravans. From Persia and India came the stars, maps of the heavens, measurements of time. From China came paper, compasses, and gunpowder, inventions that would later reshape the entire world. From the Islamic world came algebra, medicine, and the architecture of light. The Silk Road was the first internet, a web of knowledge spun across the ancient world. Every traveler was both messenger and student. Every city along the way was a library of encounters, written not on pages, but in the lives of those who passed through. The road also taught kindness. Because the journey was long and harsh, survival depended on generosity. To offer water to a stranger was to honor the road itself. To share food was to share protection. There were words of blessing used by travelers in every language, but their meaning was always the same. May your road be safe. May your fire stay warm. In this way, humanity learned to trust strangers. And in a world before borders and passports, that trust was the only true currency. Imagine a night in an oasis town. A Chinese trader unwraps silk before a Persian jeweler. Beside them, an Arab scholar explains the motion of the stars to a Buddhist monk. Somewhere nearby, A Greek musician plucks a lyre, while a woman from India hums along to a melody she has never heard before. For a few hours, the world becomes one room. Then morning comes, and they go their separate ways, east, west, north, south, carrying pieces of one another in their memory. That is what the Silk Road truly was, not a road of silk, but a road of faces. A thread of humanity stretching from sea to sea, woven from the simple act of meeting. But every meeting has its price. The same roads that carried wisdom also carried war. Ideas that connected could also divide. The Silk Road brought peace and conflict, faith and fanaticism, beauty and greed. Empires fought for control of its routes, for the right to tax and guard the flow of trade. Cities flourished and fell like stars, bright for a moment, then gone. The same openness that made the road strong also made it fragile. Yet, even when borders closed and empires turned to dust, the memory of the road endured, because its foundation was not stone, but human longing. Even now, in our time of airplanes and satellites, the Silk Road has not vanished. Its spirit lives in every bridge, every border crossing, every message sent across a distance. The exchange continues, faster, noisier, digital, but still the same at its core. Every time we share an idea, every time we learn from someone unlike ourselves, we walk the Silk Road again. Every road, no matter how grand, carries within it the seed of its own fading. The Silk Road was no exception. For centuries it had stretched across continents, pulsing with the life of empires, merchants, and dreamers. But nothing that depends on peace and openness lasts forever. Slowly, quietly, the road began to disappear, not in a single storm, nor by the fall of one city, but through the slow turning of time, the way sand covers footprints, one grain at a time. It began with the empires. Each empire that had protected the road, Han, Kushan, Sassanid, Byzantine, eventually crumbled, and with each collapse, a section of the road went dark. Merchants who once traveled in safety now faced raids, shifting borders and taxes that drained profit from courage. The once open deserts grew dangerous. Bandits prowled the old paths, and caravans began to avoid them. Where once there were hundreds of travelers, now there were dozens, and in time there were none. The Silk Road had always relied on the rare alignment of peace between East and West. When that peace was broken, the road fell silent. But it was not war alone that ended the Silk Road. It was water. In the 15th century, new roads appeared, not across sand, but across the sea. The age of exploration had begun. Sails rose on the horizon where before there had been only wind. European ships found new routes to India, to China, to the Spice Islands, faster, safer, and more profitable than the long, perilous desert crossings. The sea became the new Silk Road, and like an old melody forgotten when a new song begins, the overland routes faded from memory. The caravans stopped coming. The caravansaries emptied. The wells dried. The road, once alive with footsteps, was left to the sand and wind. The great oases that once shone like stars along the route began to dim. Merv, once called the Queen of the World, became a ruin. Samarkand, jewel of the East, fell under new rulers and new faiths. Kashgar, once the crossroads of 1,000 voices, became a border town at the edge of empires. Even Dunhuang, the guardian of the desert, buried its treasures, sealing the manuscripts in its caves as if the people knew the road's breath was ending. Where there had been music, there was now dust. Where there had been trade, there was memory. The wind took the voices, the sand covered the stones, and the road began to sleep. But decline is never only death. In the stillness, something else began to happen. The road, freed from its burden of commerce, became a legend. Travelers who came centuries later did not come to trade. They came to remember. They traced the old paths in awe, walking through ruins like pilgrims at the shrine of humanity itself. The Silk Road, once a network of merchants, became a symbol of connection, of discovery, of what it means to move through the world without walls. The world had changed, but the road still existed, not on maps, but in imagination. When Islam spread across Central Asia, new routes of pilgrimage appeared. Mecca, Medina, the sacred heart of faith. The focus of travel turned from trade to devotion. The road's rhythm slowed, then transformed. Even empires that once lived from its pulse began to look inward. The Mongol Pax, which had briefly revived the Silk Road under Kublai Khan, collapsed with the same swiftness that had once made it flourish. The threads loosened, one by one, until only fragments remained, small trade routes, local markets, faint echoes of a world that had once connected the horizon to itself. Centuries passed. The sand grew deeper. Villages were swallowed. Temples eroded. The wind, eternal and indifferent, reclaimed what men had made. But even in ruin, the road had a kind of peace. It had carried the weight of the world for 1,000 years, and now, at last, it could rest. Travelers who came upon its remnants felt something sacred in the emptiness, a sense that history itself had chosen to sleep here, beneath the dunes and the stars. The Silk Road did not end. It rested. It withdrew into the earth like a breath drawn inward, waiting for the right moment to be exhaled again. That moment came centuries later, when archaeologists and historians began to seek its traces. They uncovered coins stamped with forgotten kings, fragments of silk preserved in desert tombs, murals in caves still glowing with color after 1,000 years. Each discovery was like a heartbeat returning, faint but steady. The world began to remember. And now, in our century, Roads once silent are alive again. Trains, highways, and digital cables follow the same paths the camels once walked. The Silk Road has risen anew, not in dust, but in data, carrying light instead of silk. The world, it seems, never truly leaves its old roads behind. It only changes the form of its footsteps. When you stand in the deserts of Central Asia, you can still feel it. The whisper of movement, faint but real. The dunes curve like waves frozen in time. The wind hums softly, as if remembering the sound of bells and voices. If you close your eyes, you can almost hear the caravans again, the creak of leather, the murmur of prayer, the sigh of sand beneath slow feet. The Silk Road may be gone from maps, but not from the world. It lives in every connection we make, in every exchange between strangers, in every act of curiosity that crosses a boundary. It is not only a memory, it is a way of being, a quiet belief that the world is meant to be shared, and that the space between us is not emptiness, but possibility. Night has fallen over the desert. The stars burn with the same light that once guided caravans across these dunes. The air is cool now, and the wind moves softly, carrying with it a faint scent of sand and memory. You walk slowly. The moon paints the dunes in shades of silver. There are no roads anymore, only shapes, curves and hollows, outlines of what once was. But your footsteps follow something invisible, a rhythm older than maps. This is where the Silk Road breathes still, not in sound, but in silence. Beneath your feet lie centuries. If you could look beneath the sand, you would see fragments, a shard of pottery, a coin stamped with a forgotten king's name, a bead of glass once traded for a bolt of silk. Every grain of dust here once touched a traveler. You pause, listening. The desert is not empty. It hums faintly, the low, endless tone of time itself. Somewhere in that hum is the whisper of camel bells, the laughter of merchants sharing wine in a caravanserai courtyard, the murmur of prayer as the dawn rose over the horizon. They are not gone. They are simply quieter now. You come upon a wall half buried in the sand, the remains of an old inn, perhaps, where travelers once found shelter. The stones are worn smooth, their edges rounded by wind. Inside, there is nothing, no roof, no doors, only the echo of space. But when you close your eyes, the emptiness fills. You can see the flicker of firelight, hear the shuffle of tired feet, the rustle of fabric, the quiet sigh of rest. A man is counting his coins. A woman hums softly as she stirs a pot. Somewhere, a child sleeps beside a camel, dreaming of rivers and trees. Then the vision fades, and you are alone again. But the warmth lingers. Far ahead, the mountains rise, dark silhouettes against the silver sky. They look close, but distance in the desert is a trick of light. They may take days to reach, or a lifetime. The moon climbs higher, bright enough to cast shadows. You walk in their company, feeling small, but not afraid. The same light once fell on emperors and wanderers alike, on kings in silk and shepherds in rags. The road was always fair that way. It gave the same horizon to all. Silence in the desert is never empty. It has layers like time. The first is the sound of your own breath, then the faint pulse of wind moving grains of sand, and beneath that, deeper still, the silence of all that came before, the memory of movement, resting now in peace. You realize that this road does not lead anywhere anymore. It no longer connects cities or empires. It connects moments, the living and the lost, the now and the forever. The Silk Road is not a place. It is a state of being, the space between departure and arrival, between longing and fulfillment. You stop at the crest of a dune and look back. There are no footprints behind you. The wind has already erased them. It feels as though you were never here. And yet, the desert knows. It remembers in its own way, not through marks, but through presence. Every traveler who has ever crossed this land becomes part of it, absorbed into its rhythm. Perhaps that is the final lesson of the road. To move is to leave nothing behind but the memory of motion itself. To travel is not to conquer distance, but to be changed by it. Hours pass. The eastern sky begins to pale, soft blue creeping into black. The stars fade, one by one, like candles being blown out by time. When the first light touches the dunes, you see the desert differently. The sand glows gold. The horizon stretches infinite again. Somewhere, a hawk cries. You take one last breath of cool air. The night is ending, and with it, the dream of the road. But in that brief space between darkness and dawn, you understand something simple. The Silk Road never truly ended. It became a circle, one that passes through us every time we reach out, connect, trade, or dream. The road is within us, the instinct to move, to seek, to share. You turn to leave. The wind rises again, soft and warm, brushing over the dunes like a farewell. As you walk away, you hear it, or perhaps you imagine it, a voice carried in the air, speaking no language and yet perfectly clear. The road is alive. It remembers. Walk gently, and then there is only light. The Amber Road, the golden veins of the north. There are stones that belong to the earth, granite, marble, basalt. And there are stones that belong to memory. Amber is one of those. It is not born of rock or fire, but of sunlight and trees. It begins as resin, the slow golden tears of ancient forests dripping from trunks into the soil. Then time takes hold. For millions of years, wind, sand, and sea Press it into silence, and when at last it rises again, polished by waves or uncovered by human hands, it glows like frozen light. Amber is sunlight made solid, a drop of the past that you can hold between your fingers. Pick up a piece of amber, and it feels warm, unlike any other stone. It carries heat, as though it remembers the forest it came from. Sometimes, within its glow, you see shapes. A leaf, a fragment of moss, or an insect perfectly preserved, caught in mid-flight millions of years ago. Those tiny fossils are like voices trapped in silence, moments of life suspended beyond decay. The ancients believed they were souls, tiny spirits held in golden glass, their beauty eternal. And in a way, they were right. Amber is life that refused to vanish. It does not age. It only deepens. Its color, once pale and soft, grows warmer with every century, from honey to flame, from gold to blood red. Amber was first found where the sea meets the forest, along the cold shores of the Baltic, where pine trees bend beneath gray skies. There, storms would throw it ashore, scattered among seaweed and shells. Fishermen collected it after tempests, believing it to be the tears of the sun, or the gifts of gods who lived beneath the waves. To them, amber was not a gem to be sold, but a blessing to be respected. The people of the north called it by many names. Bernstein, burning stone, because it caught fire when touched by flame. Electron, from the Greek, for it drew straw and feathers when rubbed. Alive with invisible energy. To touch amber was to feel the first spark of what we now call electricity, a power humanity would not understand for thousands of years. Amber seemed alive, half matter, half memory, neither mineral nor spirit, but something in between. Long before history was written, amber began to move. People carried it south, through forests and rivers, across plains and mountains, trading it for salt, wine, and bronze. It became a currency of wonder, a material both sacred and mysterious. To the Mycenaeans and the Egyptians, amber was more precious than gold. Necklaces of it were found in tombs beside kings. In Greece, it was offered to the gods. In Rome, it adorned gladiators and emperors alike. But to reach those distant lands, it had to travel, and thus the Amber Road was born. A web of trails connecting the Baltic to the Adriatic, the cold north to the warm south. Not one single road, but 1,000 winding paths through wilderness and time. The people who walked them did not know they were shaping history. They were only following light. Amber was said to hold more than beauty. Healers ground it into powder and mixed it with honey to ease pain. Sailors wore it against storms. Lovers exchanged it as a promise, believing it could trap a heartbeat, a whisper, a vow. In some places, people burned it like incense, its smoke sweet and resinous, rising toward the heavens like an offering. the air filled with the scent of ancient forests, as if the past itself was exhaling through fire. To wear amber was to carry the memory of the sun. To hold it was to hold a fragment of eternity. If you listen to amber, really listen, you can almost hear it. A faint crackle when it warms in your hand. A whisper like leaves in wind. It is the sound of time condensed, the echo of a forest long vanished beneath the sea. Every piece of amber is a story, not of kings or wars, but of stillness, of patience, of transformation. A drop of resin that dreamed of becoming light. And perhaps that is why the people who traded it treated it with such reverence. They did not see it as merchandise, but as a living bridge between earth and sky, between life and what comes after. So the travelers began their long passage south, through the dense woods of Poland, across the rivers of Bohemia, over the Alps toward the Adriatic Sea. They carried amber in small leather pouches, hidden against thieves, guarded like fire in the dark. The road they followed was rough and wild. No empires paved it, no kings claimed it. It belonged to those who could read the land, who knew where rivers froze and where wolves waited. The amber road was not marked by milestones or borders. Its only guide was the pull of trade and the glow of the treasure itself. To walk it was to follow light through shadow, to carry the sun through the heart of winter. Even now, in museums and private hands, amber glows as it did thousands of years ago, soft, eternal, alive. No other material holds the same warmth, the same silence. It is a time capsule of the earth's memory, proof that beauty can be born of patience. When you hold a piece of amber to the light, it seems to breathe. And perhaps, in a way, it does. Not with lungs, but with time. It reminds us that even the smallest thing, a drop of resin, a forgotten trail, a faint gleam in the sand, can become something eternal, if only it endures long enough. The road begins in silence, in the whisper of the Baltic wind, in the cry of seabirds circling above gray waters. On the shore, among driftwood and shells, the first traders search the sand. They move slowly, eyes low, waiting for the sun to catch something golden among the stones. And when it does, when a glimmer of honey light flashes from the tide, they bend down and lift it gently from the wet sand. A small, glowing stone, warm in their hand. The beginning of a journey that will take it across the entire continent. This is the Amber Road, the golden route that carried the light of the North to the heart of the ancient world. From the coast, the path slips quietly into the forest, a world of pine and mist, of silence, broken only by the call of ravens and the crunch of snow beneath boots. Here, the traders move in small groups, following rivers and animal trails. There are no milestones, no walls, only the deep green of trees and the pale thread of the sky above. They carry pouches of amber wrapped in cloth, tied close to the chest. Each stone is precious, not only for its worth, but for its meaning. To lose one is to lose light itself. Nights are long here. The fires burn low, the smoke rising straight into the frozen air. Sometimes wolves watch from the tree line, silent, silver shapes between trunks. But the traders do not fear them. They believe that amber protects, that its glow wards off both evil and cold. The forest is their cathedral, the road their prayer. Beyond the forest lie rivers, the Vistula, the Elbe, the Morava, flowing south like veins of silver through the land. The traders load their amber into wooden boats, flat and shallow, and follow the current. The water carries them gently through fog and dawn. Along the banks, they stop at small settlements, villages made of thatch and smoke. Here, they trade amber for salt, honey, or iron. Children run to the shore to see the glowing stones, some small as fingernails, others large enough to fill a hand. The villagers call them drops of the sun. Every trade, every gesture is slow and deliberate. There is no rush. The road is not about speed, but endurance, about patience measured in seasons. As the traders move south, the land rises, the forests thin, the rivers narrow and twist between cliffs. Now come the hardest miles, the Alps, the Carpathians, walls of stone standing between the cold north and the warm south. Snow blinds the eyes, winds cut the skin. Paths vanish beneath avalanches, bridges crumble, and the echo of hooves fades quickly in the fog. Yet they climb. Slowly, with hands and ropes, they lead their animals upward, step by careful step. Amber, they say, is sunlight trapped in stone, and the sun itself seems to guide them. At night, above the tree line, the stars are so close they almost touch the snow. The traders sit around a fire no bigger than a shield, their faces orange and quiet. No one speaks much. There are only the sounds of cracking ice and the distant growl of the wind. They know that every mountain crossed brings them closer to warmth, to new voices, to the southern sea. And then, one morning, they descend. The snow softens, the air turns warmer, and the scent of pine is replaced by the smell of grass and salt. They reach the lands of the Celts, the Romans, the Greeks, the world of stone cities and open markets. Their northern cloaks look rough here, their faces foreign. But when they open their pouches and show the amber, the crowd gathers. The southern traders have never seen light like this. They lift the stones to the sun, watching the glow pass through them like living fire. They see insects frozen inside, delicate wings, tiny legs, captured forever in honey glass. To them, it is a wonder, a piece of the world's beginning, delivered from the edge of the earth. They trade wine, bronze, fine cloth, and gold in exchange. Amber becomes a symbol of status, worn by queens, offered in temples, placed in tombs. And for every piece sold, another journey begins north again, to gather more of the sun's tears. Over the centuries, the path becomes a rhythm. Every season, new caravans set out. The route widens, forks, changes, through Bohemia, Moravia, Venetia. Villages grow into markets. Markets grow into towns. The Amber Road becomes a thread binding Europe, the north's wild forests to the south's marble shores. Along it move not just stones, but stories. Legends of gods who weep golden tears, of storms that bring treasure, of people who walk between worlds of ice and light. And through it all, amber glows the same, quiet, constant, timeless. It does not fade in cold or dark. It carries the same warmth wherever it goes. By the time it reaches the Adriatic, the journey has changed both traveler and stone. The amber, once rough and raw, is now polished and smooth, ready to adorn crowns or lie on altars. The traveler, once a hunter or fisherman, has become a citizen of the world, someone who has seen the edges of empires and the many faces of the same sun. And when he looks into a piece of amber, he no longer sees only gold. He sees the whole road reflected there, forests, rivers, mountains, and faces, all glowing quietly inside. For the Amber Road is not a road of conquest, nor a road of kings. It is a road of endurance, of connection, of light. A path where every step carries warmth through the coldest parts of the world. Even now, in museums and fields, in jewelry and soil, amber still travels. It passes from hand to hand, from north to south, from memory to meaning. The root may have vanished, but the light has not. Because the Amber Road was never just about where it led. It was about what it carried. The quiet proof that even in the darkest places, something golden can survive. Before the merchants and the maps, before the cities and the coins, there were the traders of the north, men and women who lived close to the edge of the world. They came from places where winter ruled half the year, and the sun hung low, pale and distant, over forests of ice. Their homes were built of pine and smoke, their lives bound to the rhythm of the sea and the wind. They did not call themselves traders, not at first. They were gatherers of light. When storms passed over the Baltic Sea, they left behind treasures. Amber washed ashore like forgotten stars, caught in seaweed and sand. At dawn, the finders walked the beach with baskets, their eyes trained to spot the faintest glimmer among the gray stones. Each discovery was small, a pebble, a drop, a tear of gold. Sometimes a larger piece would appear, polished by the tide into smooth perfection. They believed these were gifts from the gods, offerings cast up by the ocean, proof that even the sea loved the sun. The finders collected what they could, cleaned it in cold water, and laid it out to dry in the weak northern light. Some they kept for luck, some they carved into beads or amulets, and the rest, the finest pieces, they prepared for the long road south. Their caravans were not grand. There were no camels or banners, no guards or coins stamped with empires, just small groups of travelers, wrapped in furs, leading sleds or wagons, moving quietly along the frozen rivers. They traded as they went. Amber for salt, amber for food, amber for passage through strange lands. Each exchange was simple, honest, human. A handshake, a nod, a shared meal beneath the trees. The Amber Road was born not from power, but from trust. A chain of kindness that stretched across continents. These traders carried no maps, only memory, rivers, stars, and the shapes of hills learned by heart. They followed the calls of birds, the bend of streams, the smell of pine in the wind. In their villages, amber was woven into every part of life. Children wore small pieces as charms to ward off illness. Fishermen tied beads to their nets for luck. Women placed amber near their hearths, believing its glow would keep spirits kind. When the nights grew long and cold, they burned fragments of it in the fire, the air filling with a sweet, resinous smoke. It was said that amber burned with a living flame, brighter than wood, softer than oil. The light of ancient trees returning to the sky. To them, amber was not a luxury. It was protection. It was warmth in the endless dark. When spring returned and the rivers thawed, the traders set out again. Their sleds became boats. Their paths became currents. They moved slowly, but without pause, following the flow of water and the whispers of travelers who came before. At night, they camped by the riverside. The fire crackled, and the stones of amber shone faintly in its glow, as if answering the flame's call. They told stories of gods who wept golden tears into the sea, of a sun that fell to earth and broke into 1,000 glowing fragments, of spirits trapped inside the amber, waiting to return to the light. No one knew whether these stories were true, but when the wind moved through the trees and the amber glimmered in the dark, it was easy to believe. The farther south they went, the more foreign the faces became. In the forests of Bohemia, they met miners and hunters. In the valleys of Moravia, farmers and craftsmen. Farther still, merchants from Rome and Greece, men dressed in linen and bronze, speaking languages like music. They brought with them things the northern traders had never seen. Glass that shone like frozen water, coins that sang when struck, wine that burned like fire. And yet, the Southerners looked at amber with the same wonder the Northerners felt for their cities. They touched it with reverence, held it to the sun, and smiled as if seeing daylight for the first time. It was a meeting of worlds, the raw and the refined, the forest and the marble hall, the hunter and the philosopher, all connected by one golden thread. Not every journey ended in triumph. Some traders were lost to hunger, cold, or rivers that froze too late and broke beneath their feet. Others vanished in the mountains, their names remembered only in songs. The amber road was beautiful, but it was not kind. Its reward was not only wealth, but the knowledge of endurance, the quiet pride of having carried the sun through the darkest lands. When they returned home, their packs lighter, their faces older, they brought more than trade. They brought stories, songs, words from faraway tongues, and with them, the world itself seemed to grow larger. Generations passed. The children of those traders became sailors, builders, smiths. The amber road changed, but the memory of it did not fade. Every family had a piece of amber kept in a drawer or hung near the door, a reminder that their ancestors once walked between worlds. Amber was their legacy, not of wealth, but of wonder. It taught them that the world was vast, and that even those from the farthest north had something to give, something made not by human hands, but by the patient work of time. And so, though the road itself shifted and blurred, its spirit endured. Wherever amber was carried, the story of its travelers went with it, the people who followed light, and in doing so, became light themselves. If you stand today on a Baltic shore after a storm, you can still find amber among the sand. The sea gives it up slowly, as if remembering. Pick one up, feel its warmth against your palm, and you are touching the team light that guided those traders through forests and frost thousands of years ago. The amber road is gone, but the people of the north remain. In every fire they light, in every glow that softens the dark, there is a little of that same gold, the quiet fire that once connected the edge of the sea to the heart of the world. Long before scholars spoke of geology or chemistry, people asked simpler questions. Why does this stone shine like fire? Why does it burn like wood, but never darken? Why does it seem alive? And because the world then spoke in stories, the answers came in the language of myth. Amber was not just a material, it was a mystery, a bridge between worlds, a reminder that the earth itself could feel and weep and dream. The oldest story begins with the sun. In the north, where days were short and winters endless, the people feared the dark. They believed that once the sun itself had fallen into the sea, wounded by the cold, sinking beneath the waves. The sea mourned and wept golden tears, which hardened into amber and washed ashore after storms. To hold amber, they said, was to hold the sun's sorrow, or perhaps its forgiveness. A promise that light, though lost, would always return. Even today, after great storms, when the waves roll amber onto the beaches of Lithuania and Poland, locals say quietly, "The sun has cried again." In the Baltic lands, another story bloomed, one of love and tragedy. Jurate was a sea goddess, ruler of an amber palace beneath the waves. Her halls were made of golden light, her throne carved from pure sunstone. One day, she heard the song of a mortal fisherman, Castitus, who sang to the sea with such beauty that even the waves grew still to listen. Against the laws of gods and men, Jurate rose from the depths and fell in love with him. For a time their world was peace, sea and sky, divine and human, joined by song. But the thunder god Perkunus grew angry. He struck down Jurate's palace with lightning, shattering it into countless fragments. Those fragments became amber, pieces of her home, scattered forever along the Baltic shore. And they say that when storms rise over the sea and waves crash against the rocks, you can still hear her crying for Castitus. Each drop of amber washed ashore is a tear from her broken heart. In the lands farther south, the Greeks told their own tale. Once the mighty god Helios drove his chariot across the sky each day, pulling the sun behind him. But his son, Phaethon, begged to guide the chariot himself, to feel the glory of fire and light. Reluctantly, Helios agreed. But when Phaethon took the reins, the horses of the sun grew wild. They veered too high, burning the heavens, then plunged too low, setting the earth aflame. Zeus, to save the world, struck him down with lightning. Phaethon fell into the river Eridanos, and his sisters, the Heliades, wept for him endlessly. Their tears turned to drops of amber, which fell into the river and drifted to the sea. The Greeks called amber electron, the light of mourning, the fire of grief. And thus, amber became the symbol of human longing, our eternal desire to touch the divine, and the pain that always follows. In the dark northern woods, where the wind spoke through pines and no temples stood, people told simpler, older stories. They said that amber was the breath of trees, the blood of the forest turned to stone. When lightning struck a pine and split it open, the resin bled out, glowing in the night. Over time, the earth would take it, press it, and return it as a gift, a golden reminder that even when the forest burns, it is never truly lost. To the forest people, amber was proof of resurrection, that life could sleep inside death and rise again in light. There were other tales too, whispered, not told, that the souls of the dead sometimes lingered inside amber, caught in the instant of transformation, that its glow was the light of memory itself, the final warmth of someone loved and gone. For this reason, amber was placed in graves, especially of children and travelers. It was believed to guide their spirits through the darkness, a tiny lamp against the endless night. Some even said that to burn amber was to free a soul. Its smoke, rising into the air, carried the spirit home to the sun. These stories traveled with the traders, from the shores of the Baltic to the temples of Rome, from the forests of Poland to the markets of Athens. Each place added its own voice, its own color. In one land, amber was tears. In another, it was fire. In another still, it was love made eternal. The myths gave the road its meaning. They turned trade into pilgrimage. Every merchant who carried amber carried also a piece of story, a fragment of the world's imagination. And yet, beyond all the tales, there was a truth the ancients could feel, even if they could not name it. Amber reminded them that the world was alive, that even trees could cry, that even light could fall, that even loss could become beautiful. It was the visible memory of time, proof that nothing truly vanishes. It only changes form. In that way, the myths were not wrong. Amber was indeed divine, not because gods made it, but because it taught people to see the sacred in everything that endures. Even today, when we pick up a piece of amber, we feel what they felt. Its warmth, its softness, its quiet glow. We turn it in the light, and for a moment, it seems to hold something greater. A breath, a memory, a small and eternal sun. The myths have not faded. They are still there, in the way we look at it, in the hush that comes when we hold it near the light. For deep inside us, we still remember, amber is not just a stone. It is the world remembering itself, through light, through love, through time. Winter in the north does not arrive suddenly. It drifts in, like a thought that becomes a dream. The wind turns colder, the rivers slow, and the forests begin to whisper in softer tones. Along the old routes, the ones that once carried the glow of amber through Europe's heart, snow begins to fall. It covers the forgotten paths, the fields, the broken bridges, and beneath it all, the road sleeps. But if you walk there quietly, when the world is still, you can feel it, the faint pulse of what once was. The frozen air holds a kind of silence that feels alive. Your breath rises like smoke, the only movement in the endless white. The snow crunches beneath your boots, and though you are alone, you sense the company of many, travelers long gone, whose footsteps still echo in the memory of the land. The trees stand like sentinels, black against the silver light. Their branches are heavy with frost, their trunks lined with scars of wind. And as the sun sinks low, its rays catch on the ice, turning every branch, every flake, every shadow into gold. It's as if the world itself remembers amber, the forest glowing again, not with warmth, but with memory. If you listen long enough, you can almost hear them. The creak of wooden sleds, the soft jingle of harness bells, the murmur of voices speaking old words that no one now understands. They move through the snow like ghosts, slow, patient, eternal, wrapped in furs, faces hidden, their eyes fixed southward, toward the promise of light. In their hands, they carry pouches close to the chest, as if guarding something sacred. And they are. Inside those pouches lies the sun itself, asleep in stones of honey. The northern night is vast. It swallows time. The stars hang low and clear, reflecting off the frozen rivers like eyes watching from eternity. In the dark, the wind rises, carrying the faint scent of pine and salt. It moves through the forest like a voice, low, ancient, unhurried. You imagine it speaking to you, saying, "We are still here." The road does not die. It only sleeps beneath the snow. The traders knew this feeling, the weight of solitude, the comfort of purpose. Every mile was a prayer. That spring would come, that light would return, that their steps mattered, even if no one saw them. You stopped to rest beside an old stone marker, worn smooth, half buried in frost. Someone, long ago, built it to guide travelers through the blizzards. Now it stands alone, a memory of direction in a world that has forgotten where it leads. You build a small fire. The flame flickers weakly, orange against the pale blue of the snow. From your pocket, you take a piece of amber, small, smooth, golden. When you hold it near the firelight, it seems to come alive. It glows from within, as if remembering a sun that once warmed a forgotten forest. You turn it slowly in your fingers, and for a moment, the cold disappears. You think of those who walked this road before you, the finders, the traders, the dreamers, all carrying this same light through winters far colder than yours. The road was not only made of earth and stone, it was made of endurance, of belief, of warmth carried through darkness. Hours pass, the fire fades to embers. Then, at the edge of the world, a faint line of gold appears, the first hint of dawn. The light spreads slowly across the horizon, and the snow begins to glow, soft and alive. For a few minutes, the entire forest turns to amber. Every branch, every drift of snow, every breath of air shines as if lit from within. The frozen trail blazes with color, orange, gold, pale rose, until it looks like the road itself has awakened. You stand in silence, watching the light move, and you realize that the amber road was never just a line on a map. It was this, the meeting of warmth and cold, of memory and distance, of light and life. A path made of belief that even in the deepest winter, something golden still endures. When the sun finally rises, you begin to walk again. Your footsteps press into the snow, small, temporary marks that the wind will soon erase. And yet, you know they matter, because every step on this frozen trail is a continuation of the same story, the endless human journey to carry light through darkness. The amber road is gone, but it still exists in another form, not beneath our feet, but within us, in every act of patience, in every gesture of kindness, in every spark of beauty that survives the cold. You walk on, not to reach a destination, but to listen to the quiet music of the snow, the whisper of the trees, the heartbeat of the earth beneath the ice. And somewhere, faint and eternal, the road hums back, a golden song hidden beneath the frost. When the sun climbs high enough, the world turns blinding white. The amber in your hand glows warmly in the light. A single drop of the sun that somehow never went out. You hold it for a moment longer, then place it gently on the snow, as the traders once did when thanking the road. The wind moves softly, covering it again, returning it to the earth. The light does not vanish. It only sinks deeper, waiting for another hand, another storm, another age. And as you walk away, you realize the road never ends. It only circles through time, carrying the same truth forward, that even in the coldest world, something always burns softly, patiently, forever. In the ancient world, power did not exist in palaces. It existed on the roads. A king could rule only as far as his words could travel, and before the age of paper and wires, the distance between command and obedience was measured not in miles, but in time. The Persian king Darius the Great understood this better than anyone, and so, in the heart of his empire, where the mountains of Anatolia met the deserts of Asia, he gave an order that would echo for centuries. Build me a road that never sleeps. It began around 500 BCE, when Persia stretched farther than any empire before it, from the banks of the Indus River to the shores of the Aegean Sea. 1,000 cultures, 100 languages, countless gods and cities, all under one crown. To govern such a realm required more than soldiers. It required connection. And so Darius envisioned something new, a road of stone and dust that would tie his empire together like a golden thread. From Susa, his capital near the Persian Gulf, to Sardis, the western gate of his empire, the road would run straight and true. More than 2,000 miles of human order, carved into the chaos of nature. It would pass through mountains, across rivers, through deserts and valleys, guarded by stations and waypoints. It would be the empire's spine, carrying its lifeblood, messengers, merchants, pilgrims, soldiers, from one end of the world to the other. The royal road was not just built, it was declared into being. The order went out, and thousands answered. Engineers, stonemasons, soldiers, slaves, and farmers, each left their mark upon the land. They cut through rock, raised bridges over rivers, laid stone upon clay, packed dust beneath wheel and hoof. No empire had ever built so vast and so deliberate a structure. The road was wide enough for 2 chariots to pass and firm enough to bear the weight of caravans. Every 30 kilometers, there stood a station house, a resting place with water, food, and shelter. From these stations, couriers rode, the king's messengers, swift and tireless. Their horses waited, fresh and ready, at every stop. And so, the messages of the empire could travel from one end to the other in just 7 days, faster than any human message had ever moved across the earth. Herodotus wrote of them, "Neither snow, nor rain, nor heat, nor darkness of night prevents these couriers from completing their appointed course with all speed." Those words, written more than 2,000 years ago, still echo in the motto of modern postal services. the whisper of Persia's brilliance carried into our own time. For Darius, the royal road was not only a tool, it was a symbol, a declaration carved into the earth that the world could be ordered, that chaos could be bridged by will. Along it, trade flourished. From Babylon came grain and glass. From Egypt came linen and papyrus. From Lydia came gold. Merchants traveled in safety under the protection of the great king's seal, knowing that thieves who touched the royal road faced death. But the road was more than commerce. It was also faith. The Persians believed that Asha, the divine order of truth and rightness, flowed through the world, and that to build roads, to connect, to bring movement and life, was to honor that cosmic law. Every milestone, every bridge, every smooth stretch of stone was an offering to order itself. The road passed through the beating hearts of the empire. Persepolis, with its columns like petrified forests of stone. Ecbatana, summer home of kings, cool and bright beneath the mountains. Arbela, where markets thrived and voices from 10 nations mingled. Nineveh, reborn under Persian law, its gates heavy with bronze. At every turn, the road carried not just goods, but ideas. It carried architecture and art, language and law. The empire's heart beat along its length, slow, steady, eternal. At night, the stations glowed with firelight, the sound of wheels fading into distance. And above them all, the stars, the same constellations that once guided the caravans of the Silk Road, burned cold and constant, watching over this new kind of journey, the journey of power. The royal road was, in its essence, a triumph of will, the human desire to impose order upon a vast and shifting world. It was precision in an age of chaos. To walk it was to feel the weight of empire, the measured rhythm of hooves, the certainty of distance known and mapped. But it was not only kings who walked it. Pilgrims, beggars, storytellers, lovers, all moved along the same path. A road built for command became a road of lives. It connected palace to village, ruler to servant, soldier to farmer. And in doing so, it did what no army ever could. It bound people together through purpose. If you stood upon the royal road at dawn, you would see it shimmer in the rising sun, a ribbon of gold stretching to the horizon. The sound of hooves would echo before the riders appeared. Dust rising in slow spirals from the dry earth. A messenger would pass, silent, focused, unstoppable. Behind him, the sound would fade, and the world would return to stillness. But the message would continue, leaping from horse to horse, from station to station, from east to west. The empire spoke through this road. It breathed through it. It lived because of it. The royal road was not a thing of stone. It was a living artery, pulsing with the rhythm of civilization itself. When Darius stood before the first completed stretch, it is said he smiled only once. He looked out across the plains and said, "Let the world know that there is a way not of conquest, but of connection, a way not of fear, but of movement." For even the greatest empire cannot last without the quiet power of a road, the promise that life, thought, and voice can always reach another shore. And so, the king's command became prophecy. Long after his palaces crumbled, the road remained. Its dust carried the memory of his dream, that through motion, the world could be won. The Royal Road, Persia's gift to the world. They were called Angarium, the messengers of the great king. Men whose footsteps echoed through the centuries, whose silence carried power greater than swords. They did not wear crowns, but they held the fate of empires in their hands. They did not speak in courts, but their words moved armies. They were where the breath of Persia whiffed, tireless, unyielding. At dawn, the road awakens. The fog still clings to the valleys, and the air tastes of dust and ash. In the distance, a horse snorts. Then the sound of hooves begins, soft at first, then steady, relentless. The messenger rides alone, his cloak drawn tight, his satchel sealed with the royal insignia, the winged lion of Darius. He does not stop to rest, to eat, or to look behind him. Every mile he rides is a command moving through time. Ahead, a station waits, a small fortress of mud, brick, and wood, its fire already burning. A fresh horse stands ready, steaming in the cool air. Before the rider even dismounts, another mounts. The satchel passes from hand to hand. Within seconds, the message is gone. The next horse already thundering down the road. This is how an empire speaks. Through motion, through rhythm, through men who never hesitate. Every 30 kilometers, a station stood, a world in miniature, a stable, a well, a fire, a guard post, food for men, water for horses, maps scratched into clay. The men who tended these stations lived at the edge of the empire's heartbeat. They slept lightly, for a courier could arrive at any hour, day or night, through heat or frost. When one came, there was no greeting, no word, only motion, one rider dismounting, another leaping forward. These places were like veins of civilization, pulsing in perfect sequence. When the system worked, the entire empire breathed as one body. A message could travel from Susa to Sardis, nearly 2,000 miles, in less than a week. In the 5th century before our era, that was faster than thought. Every messenger swore an oath before taking his post. It was not to a god, nor to gold, nor even to Darius himself, but to the road. I will not rest. I will not delay. I will not turn back until the word has reached its end. It was a vow of devotion, a sacred thread tying man to motion. And so they rode, through snow and sand, through night and thunder, never stopping. never slowing, carrying the empire's soul from horizon to horizon. The Persians believed that truth, Asha, traveled fastest when carried by those who honored their word. And so the messengers became not just couriers, but priests of the road, keepers of the empire's promise to itself. Inside the satchels were clay tablets or scrolls sealed in wax. Some contained decrees of law, others, orders for armies. Some carried news of births and deaths, victories and rebellions. Each one, no matter how small, mattered. For it was the voice of the king made flesh in ink and motion. The couriers knew they were mortal, but their cargo was not. When they fell, to storm, to arrow, to exhaustion, another took their place. The road did not pause. The message did not die. In this way, the royal road was not a path, but a chain of will, each link made of men who believed in something greater than themselves. There was no mercy for failure. A messenger who lost the satchel, who faltered, who delayed without cause, vanished from record. The empire demanded perfection, and the road accepted nothing less. And yet, there was honor in this danger. In the eyes of the Persians, a man who rode for the king became part of his breath. His life was short, but his name was carried in silence, whispered in the rhythm of hooves. To die on the road was not shame. It was fulfillment. To reach the next station alive was not luck. It was purpose. Every rider knew that beyond each horizon, another waited to take his place. And so, through countless lives, the road remained immortal. At night, when the stations burned with small fires, the desert glowed like a map of stars. Each flame a beacon, each outpost a heartbeat. Messengers came and went like comets, bright, brief, unstoppable. Merchants waited for dawn, soldiers sharpened their blades, and priests prayed by the roadside. But the riders never stopped. The empire slept. The road did not. Even the wind seemed to learn its rhythm, carrying the scent of sweat and horse and parchment from one world to another. Centuries later, when the Persian Empire fell, the royal road remained. Conquerors walked it, Macedonians, Romans, Arabs, each one inheriting not just the land, but the logic of connection. Every empire after Persia would build its own version. The Roman Via Appia, the Chinese imperial highways, the Incan Kapaknan, all born from Darius's single idea, that a civilization survives not by walls or swords, but by roads. And even today, the words once written by Herodotus about the Persian couriers live on, repeated, translated, carved in marble. Neither snow nor rain, nor heat, nor darkness of night prevents these couriers from completing their appointed course with all speed. The oath of the Angarium, carried through millennia, still whispered by those who deliver words across distance. If you stand today among the ruins of the old stations, the wind still moves through the broken stones. It sounds like hooves, faint and rhythmic, echoing across the plain. The road is gone, but the message remains. It says, connection is power, movement is life, truth is the road that never sleeps. And in that whisper, beneath the dust and the silence, the empire breathes again, not through kings, but through memory. The royal road was not only a line upon the earth, it was a string of hearts beating in unison. Each city it touched became more than a place. It became a symbol, a fragment of eternity carved into stone. From Susa to Sardis, from the sun-baked plains of Elam to the marble markets of Lydia, these were the anchors of empire, the places where motion met memory. They stood like constellations of stone, guiding travelers across a universe made of dust and dreams. The road began in Susa, the beating heart of Persia. Here, where the mountains dissolved into desert, the great king built his palace, a city of columns and courtyards, fountains and flame. When the dawn rose over Susa, its light turned the columns to gold. The air shimmered with the scent of cedar and bitumen. Messengers gathered at its gates, horses restless, scrolls sealed in wax, waiting for the signal to depart. In the audience hall, Darius sat upon his throne of lapis and gold, carved with lions and bulls. Behind him, the reliefs told stories of nations united, of tribute carried from every corner of the known world. Egyptians with ivory, Babylonians with wine, Indians with gems, Scythians with horses. Each figure walked upon the same carved path, as if echoing the road itself, a procession that never ended. Susa was more than a capital. It was a mouthpiece of empire, where command was born, where the pulse of Persia began. Farther north, upon the plain of Marv-Dasht, rose Persepolis, the city that touched the sky. Built by Darius and expanded by his son Xerxes, it was not a city of trade, but of ceremony, a monument to order, geometry, and faith. Every staircase, every relief, every column followed sacred proportion. The Persians did not seek to dominate nature. They sought to mirror it. At the center stood the Apadana, the great audience hall, with 72 columns rising like trees turned to stone. They said that when the king walked among them, his shadow never touched the ground, as if the heavens themselves held him aloft. The walls spoke without words, lions devouring bulls, symbol of day conquering night, flowers blooming in endless sequence, symbol of eternal spring. Here, time was not linear, it was circular, like the sun's path across the sky. Every spring, during the festival of Nowruz, delegates from across the empire gathered here. They brought gifts and oaths, kneeling before the throne not in submission, but in recognition of unity. For this was the heart of Persia's faith, that harmony could bind what conquest could not. And when they left, they carried that vision back along the royal road, from stone to dust, from mountain to sea. High in the Zagros Mountains lay Ecbatana, the summer capital, a city of color and cool wind. Its walls, according to legend, were sevenfold, each ring painted in a different hue: white, black, scarlet, blue, orange, silver, and gold. Here, the air smelled of rain and cedar, and the snow-capped peaks shimmered beyond the city's edge. For kings weary of the desert heat, Ecbatana was paradise, a place where the world itself seemed at peace. From its towers, one could see the caravans moving far below, winding through valleys like threads of smoke. And at night, the fires of distant stations glimmered faintly on the horizon, proof that the empire lived, even while the city slept. Ecbatana was not eternal like Persepolis, nor mighty like Susa, but it was alive, a city of breath and renewal. It reminded the Persians that even power needs rest, that even stone must listen to wind. At the far end of the royal road stood Sardis, the city of gold. Once the capital of the Lydian kings, now it was the empire's western jewel, where the Persian order met the Greek imagination. Here, traders from the Aegean mingled with Persians in silk robes. The markets rang with voices: Greek, Aramaic, Median, Egyptian, all speaking the language of trade. Amber from the north, spices from the east, silver from the mountains, all found their way to Sardis. It was said that the city never truly slept. By night, torches burned along its avenues. By day, the streets shimmered with sun. And at its heart stood the great temple of Cybele, goddess of the earth, whose worshippers sang of rebirth and continuity, the same song the royal road itself seemed to hum. To the west of Sardis lay the Aegean, the end of the empire, and the beginning of another world. Beyond that sea waited Greece, and with it the slow twilight of Persia's reign. But for now, the road ended here, in light, in sound, in glory. Together, these cities formed not just a network, but a design, an architecture of civilization. Susa spoke of command, Persepolis of vision, Ecbatana of renewal, Sardis of exchange. Between them, the road connected all that mattered: earth, sky, time, and the human will to bridge them. It was not simply a route. It was a philosophy carved in stone. To walk it was to pass through the stages of existence itself: birth, life, rest, and transformation. And to rule it was to understand that empires, like roads, must be tended, renewed, and remembered. Today, the royal road lies in fragments, pieces of old paving stones half buried in sand, broken columns reaching toward empty skies. But if you stand among the ruins of Persepolis, when the evening light turns the stone to gold, you can still see it. A vision stretching outward, faint but unbroken. A thread of order connecting mountain to plain, past to future. The road still exists, not in the earth, but in the idea it left behind. That civilization is not the building of walls, but the act of reaching outward again and again, across distance and difference. For every empire falls, but the will to connect, that remains, and through that will we still walk the royal road. Every road has its golden age, and every golden age must one day dim. The royal road, that perfect line of motion and will, did not vanish in an instant. It faded slowly, like breath leaving the world, not with thunder, but with silence. For empires do not fall when their walls collapse. They fall when their roads grow quiet. It began, as always, with distance. Messages that once flew between cities in 7 days began to take 10, then 20. Stations fell into disrepair. The couriers still rode, but the fire in their eyes was gone. Wars drained the treasury. Local kings grew bold. And the voice that once commanded half the world began to echo unanswered through the valleys of stone. The road that had carried the heart of Persia now carried its ghosts. The couriers still passed, but their pouches held not decrees, only letters of despair. Cities lost, provinces rebelling, armies fading in the west. Dust rose where once the sound of hooves had thundered like a heartbeat. The empire that had united the earth was crumbling, not through defeat, but through exhaustion. Then came the conqueror, Alexander of Macedon, young, restless, and full of impossible dreams. When he crossed the Hellespont and entered Asia, he found the road waiting for him like destiny itself. The royal road, built for Persia, now guided its destroyer. He marched upon it with speed unmatched, his armies moving like wind across the plains. Every station that had once served the Persian messengers now served him. Every milestone became a step toward conquest. And so, through the road that had once united the world, the empire of Darius fell. In a single bitter irony, the same road that had given Persia its voice became the path through which that voice was silenced. But even after conquest, the road remained. Alexander's generals walked it. Then came the Seleucids, the Parthians, the Romans. Each empire patched and paved, renamed and reused, but the bones beneath were always Persian. The stations crumbled, the pillars fell, yet the road endured. Because roads, once made, do not die. They sink into the soil, waiting for footsteps. Merchants still traveled, monks still walked, and pilgrims still followed the same curves through the same valleys. They no longer called it the royal road, but its rhythm lingered, quiet and eternal beneath their steps. Centuries passed. The once bright cities turned to dust. Persepolis was buried under sand. Ecbatana fell to ruin. Sardis became a whisper of itself, a memory of marble beneath the roots of time. But in the wild plains of Iran and Turkey, fragments remained, slabs of stone weathered smooth by wind, half buried beneath thorn and grass. Shepherds led their flocks over them without knowing what they were. Travelers camped beside them, never guessing they slept upon the road of kings. And when the rain came, the grooves filled with water, reflecting the sky, as if the earth itself were remembering. Once the royal road carried the will of Darius. Now it carried only the wind. But perhaps that was enough. For in that wind there was still the faint echo of movement, the whisper of hooves, the murmur of messengers who would not stop. Their bones were gone, their names forgotten, but their purpose, to connect, to move, to carry meaning through silence, still lived, transformed into the air we breathe, the paths we walk, the lines that connect our world today. The empire fell, the road remained, and that endurance, more than any palace or battle, was the true victory. If you walk the remnants of the royal road today, you can still feel it, not in the dust beneath your feet, but in the pattern of the land. The mountains open at just the right angles. The rivers curve as if remembering where the bridges once stood. The air itself feels shaped, smoothed by centuries of passage. At night, under the same stars that once guided the couriers, the silence grows almost human. You can imagine the flicker of distant torches, the cry of a horse, the sound of a scroll being sealed in wax. You can almost hear the words carried on that ancient wind. Neither snow nor rain, nor darkness of night. All roads end, but not all journeys do. The royal road became the Silk Road. The Silk Road became the maritime route. The maritime route became the digital lines that now circle our planet. And yet, beneath it all, it is the same instinct, the same human hunger to reach, to connect, to carry thought faster than distance allows. The Persians built theirs of stone. We build ours of light. But the idea is unchanged. To move is to live. To connect is to endure. To send a message is to believe that the world still listens. And perhaps that is why the Royal Road still exists, not in geography, but in spirit. Every time we speak across distance, every time we share knowledge, we walk it again. The king's command, "Build me a road that never sleeps," was never truly obeyed. It was fulfilled. For the road he imagined is now everywhere, invisible, endless, alive. At sunset, when the desert cools and the horizon burns red, the wind moves softly through the ruins of Persepolis. It lifts the dust, carries it over the broken columns and across the silent plains. If you listen closely, it sounds like footsteps. Perhaps it is the sound of the last messenger still riding, forever between the cities of stone and the cities of memory, carrying not orders, not decrees, but a simple truth whispered through time. That connection is the breath of the world, and as long as something moves, a rider, a thought, a voice, the world is still alive. Back to the roads that dream. There is a moment, just before night falls, when the world seems to hold its breath. The wind slows, the light softens, and in that silence you can almost hear it. The faint hum of movement beneath the surface of time. the sound of the old roads still breathing. They no longer belong to empires or kings. Their stones have sunk beneath the soil. Their bridges have turned to dust. But in the hush between day and dark, their pulse continues, soft, eternal, patient. For roads do not die, they only change shape. Far to the east, beneath a sky of pale blue and gold, the desert lies quiet. The dunes ripple like water frozen mid-motion. Beneath them, fragments of porcelain and silk still sleep, the ghosts of 1,000 journeys. Once, caravans passed here in long, shimmering lines. Camels swayed like ships upon waves of sand. Voices sang in 12 languages. And above it all, the wind whispered, the eternal companion of travelers. Now only the wind remains. And yet, if you walk there at dusk, your shadow stretching long over the sand, you will feel them, the traders, the dreamers, the wanderers, still moving beside you, unseen but present. They walked for gold, for glory, for belief. But what they truly carried was connection, thread by thread, weaving the world together. The Silk Road was not about silk. It was about the meeting of distances, the belief that even the farthest horizon can be reached. Far to the north, the air is colder, the light softer. The sea stretches gray and endless, and the forests whisper in the wind. Along the shore, after storms, the waves leave behind small glowing stones, drops of gold scattered among shells and seaweed, amber, the frozen sunlight of ancient trees. Once it was gathered by hands now long forgotten, carried through rivers and mountains, traded for wine and bronze and stories. It passed through the hands of kings and fishermen alike. Each piece a memory, a fragment of warmth in a cold and uncertain world. The Amber Road was not about treasure. It was about light that travels, the faith that beauty can survive even the longest journey. And still, after millennia, the sea remembers. Each time it gives up another golden stone, it whispers the same truth, that time does not destroy what is made of patience. And to the south, beneath the pale heat of Persia's sky, the stone roads still shimmer faintly in the dust. Once, they were alive with the thunder of hooves and the hum of order. The royal road, stretching from Susa to Sardis, like a line of thought across the earth. It carried commands, laws, hopes, and dreams. It carried the will of a king and the breath of a people. And though its stones are broken now, its rhythm remains. In every message sent, in every bridge built, in every act of connection across the impossible. The Royal Road was not about empire. It was about order in motion, the idea that truth itself moves fastest when carried by devotion. Now, when night falls, all three roads merge into one. You can trace them not on maps, but in the shape of the human story. They cross deserts, forests, and mountains, but also hearts. They meet wherever people reach toward one another, in trade, in language, in understanding. Each was born of a different dream, one of discovery, one of beauty, one of power. But all were built from the same truth, that to move is to live. Because the moment we stopped moving, stopped crossing, stopped reaching, the world would fall silent. The roads are not relics of the past. They are the veins of what it means to be human. In our own age, the roads have changed again. They are not made of dust or stone. They are invisible, lines of light, threads of signal and code. Our messages travel not on horseback, but at the speed of thought. And yet, the feeling is the same. We still wait for words to arrive. We still send our voices into the distance, trusting that someone, somewhere, will receive them. Every time we speak across the world, every time we share a story or send a piece of knowledge into the unknown, we are walking those same ancient roads. The Silk Road of ideas, the Amber Road of beauty, the Royal Road of connection. They were the first networks, born of wind, light, and will, and their echo has become the heartbeat of our world. Imagine now that you stand where all three roads meet, somewhere between desert and sea, between night and dawn. The wind is soft. The stars are bright. The earth feels wide and infinite. In your hand you hold a piece of amber, golden and warm. A thread of silk drifts in the air beside you, and beneath your feet, faint but solid, lies a road of stone leading toward the horizon. You close your eyes, and for a moment, you feel the whole of history moving through you. The traders and kings, the messengers and dreamers, all carrying the same flame. The roads never truly ended. They became one. The road of humanity, stretching endlessly forward through time. And as you walk, the wind carries a whisper, ancient and familiar. Keep moving, keep reaching. The world is made of the paths you leave behind. When dawn comes, the horizon glows gold again. The light spills across the sand, the snow, the stone, touching every old road in the same breath. The Silk Road gleams beneath desert dust. The Amber Road sparkles in the frost. The Royal Road awakens under the sun. And all three seem to whisper together. A single voice made of centuries. The roads are not gone. They are only sleeping beneath your feet. You step forward, and as your shadow stretches across the earth, you understand what they always knew, that the journey never ends. It only changes form. And somewhere beyond the horizon, the next road waits. Golden, quiet, infinite.
Opa.